Hello bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with a spoiler-free review of The Black Prism by Brent Weeks. This is going to be my spoiler-free review, but I will be filming another review slash book chat with spoilers for those of you who have already read the book. The Black Prism is an adult high fantasy book, and it's the first book in the Lightbringer series, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This book is primarily about Gavin Guile, who is the prism in this world, and the prism is like a religious and a political figure in the government that rules this world. The story really gets going when Gavin finds out that he has a bastard son named Kip, who's 15 years old, that he did not know about. This book slash series has been on my radar for quite a while. I feel like it's talked about a lot, primarily because it has a really cool magic system. That's really all I knew before going into it, was that it had a cool magic system that was based on colors. And this magic system was definitely my favorite part of this book. The magic system is based on all the colors of the rainbow or the prism, whatever you want to call it, and people who can use magic in this world are able to see these different colors and to draft them, which means somehow pulling the colors into their body and turning it into a physical form and then putting it out into the world. All of the different colors have a different consistency when they're made into a physical form. Some of them are harder than others. There also seems to be like emotions attached, like people who are able to draft certain colors tend to take on those personality traits, which was really interesting. Typically, people can only draft one color or maybe a range of like 2 to 3 colors around the same area of the color spectrum, but the main character, Gavin, he's called the Prism because he can actually draft all of the colors, and that's what makes him so powerful. Another really cool thing about this magic system is that when you draft colors, it eventually kills you. So like the more you use your magic, the faster you're going to die. And after a while of people drafting certain colors, the colors leach into their eyes and make like a halo, and when you get close to dying, you like burst the halo in your eye and the color bleeds into the white part. It sounded so cool. I'm probably doing a terrible job of explaining it. So I really loved this magic system. It definitely takes a long time to really grasp how it works. Brent Weeks takes a long time to describe it to you, which I think can be good because then it's not too info dumpy in the beginning. You're definitely just like dropped into this world and you kind of have to figure things out as you go, but at the same time, it's not thrown at you all at once. My only problem with the magic was that I had a really hard time picturing it. I would love for this to be turned into like a TV show or a movie because I think visually it would be really cool just to see people like throwing colored shit at each other. But it would also help me visualize what was described because there were definitely a few things that were done with the magic that I just had to accept the fact that I couldn't imagine what it actually looked like. Even though Brent Weeks was trying to explain what it looked like on the page, I just couldn't picture it, but I had to just be okay with that and keep reading. When it comes to like the writing style and the pacing of this book, I thought the pacing was pretty good. I was constantly engaged and wanting to read more. Every time I picked it up, I would have a hard time putting it down. The chapters are all really short, which always helped me to read things faster because I'll finish a chapter and then just be like, oh, just one more chapter, and they go by so fast. So I found the writing very straightforward and easy to read. My only complaint about his writing style is that the book is in third person, but occasionally he would just like drop in direct thoughts that the character was having. And the way that he wrote in these characters' thoughts just isn't very typical of a third-person writing style, and it would always kind of catch me off guard, and I didn't really like that. It would just pull me out of the story a little bit every time it happened. As far as whether this was a more character-driven or plot-driven book, I kind of feel like it was a good mix of both. There were definitely sections that were very plot-driven and were really exciting, and then there were other sections that were slower, but there were mysteries behind the characters that were slowly being revealed. So that was another thing that I was not expecting. In this book, there are a lot of characters, and a lot of these characters have a history that we don't find out about right away. The secrets that each character has and how these characters are connected to each other, those things are unraveled slowly throughout the book. And so even in those slower character-driven sections, I was so intrigued by these characters and what they were hiding, both from me and from other characters, that I wanted to keep reading and wanted to know what was going to happen next. All of these characters are pretty morally gray, and even the main character, Gavin, there were many times where I was like, I don't think I like him, but then there were times where I thought I did like him. He's definitely done some terrible things in his past and in his present, but he's also done good things, so that's something that I really enjoyed about this book, was that the characters were fairly complex, particularly the main character, Gavin, and I really enjoyed getting to know him and finding out more of his secrets as I went through the story. I do think you have to be a patient reader to enjoy this book, because Brent Weeks takes his time not only explaining the magic system, but also unveiling the backstory of these characters and what happened to Gavin in his past. Out of all the characters, Gavin is definitely my favorite, although I really enjoyed the main female protagonist, Karis, as well. You also get a lot of point of views from Kip, the 15-year-old bastard son of Gavin, and I definitely didn't enjoy him that much. He definitely reads as like an annoying 15-year-old puberty-driven boy. So that kind of leads me into another hot topic when it comes to this book. I usually hear this book talked about because of the cool magic system, and also because people think that it may or may not be sexist. I was really hesitant going into this book because I had heard that before, and I personally am fairly sensitive to the male gaze in books where male characters are constantly objectifying women, and so I felt like I was going to have a really hard time with that going into this book, but to be honest, it didn't really bother me that much. Probably like the first 30% of this book, I didn't notice anything about women's bodies being mentioned. Once I got a little bit further into the book, it did start popping up here and there, mostly from Kip's point of view, and I felt like that was meant to be the way that Brent Weeks was trying to portray a young boy going through puberty, but then later it's also in other people's point of views as well. Honestly, after reading the book, my takeaway from it is more that Brent Weeks is obsessed with mentioning bodies in general, because not only are women's bodies mentioned repeatedly, but also men's bodies, and Kip is a fat character, and that is mentioned many times throughout the book. I personally don't feel like I'm that sensitive to things being fat phobic, but that's kind of how Kip's perspective came across to me. He often mentions his fatness, and Brent Weeks uses his fatness to, I don't want to say progress the plot, because it wasn't necessarily that, but like when Kip is fighting or trying to do things, he used his fatness in the fight. And I don't know, it just made me feel really icky. And honestly, the way Brent Weeks talked about body size in this book bothered me more than the way he talked about women's bodies, although they're pretty close. So I don't know, this book didn't really come across to me as being sexist, but more as Brent Weeks is obsessed with talking about bodies. And in the end, it was more something that I noticed and it was a distraction to me, but it wasn't like disgusting or make me want to quit reading. Obviously, everyone is entitled to their own opinion when it comes to that issue surrounding this book, but those are my 2 cents. And often I felt like it was used to try to be humorous, but I just didn't think that it was funny. That's the other thing. There were a lot of bits in this book that I could tell were meant to be funny, but it just wasn't my type of funny. I more found the funny parts to be like eye-rolling, and I think maybe the humor was immature for me or just not my taste. But at the same time, I kind of feel like as I get to know these characters more and they grow on me more, that maybe the sense of humor will grow on me more too. And then the last thing that I want to mention in this spoiler-free review is that this book was a lot gorier than I was expecting. Just like many other fantasy books, there are fight scenes, there's a battle at the end of this book. Some of those fights and battle scenes are described in some pretty gory detail. I, of course, didn't mind this. I like to read horror, so gory details doesn't bother me. And honestly, it's not something that I usually even notice, so the fact that it was something that I noticed in this book makes me think that it was gorier than a lot of other fantasy books that I've read. Overall, guys, I really enjoyed this book, this complex an awesome magic system, was so cool to learn about, and I really loved these characters and the history behind the characters and the way that Brent Weeks slowly reveals the secrets hiding in these characters' pasts and how these characters are connected to each other. I really enjoyed the plot and the characters in the story. The main reason why I didn't give it 5 stars was because of the writing style and the whole paying a lot of attention to bodies in general. That stuff definitely pulled me out of the story a little bit and kept me from completely enjoying it, at least to a 5-star level. The way this book ends has me on the edge of my seat, and I have got to know what's going to happen next. I am very excited to be continuing on in this series really soon. Alright, that's my spoiler-free review of The Black Prism. Let me know down in the comment section if you have read this book or if you're interested in reading it. And if you have read it, definitely go check out my spoiler-filled review. It's probably going to be more along the lines of a book chat, where I get to talk about all of my favorite parts of this book. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you like bookish content. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye.